I've been writing this letter over and over again, starting out each time from a different location. A different angle. Hoping to give skin to the passing of days. Trying to circumscribe a theme that would give it all some kind of meaning.
A skin to be theme, all some but enough.
But my inability seemed meaningful enough. So I let it all grow like a vine, wild and untrimmed, which made its home in and all around me, branching out in all directions, in and all around
for tendrils,
shooting out shoots for all to see and hear, with tendrils and tender twists and leaflets green, and dark, gnarly roots grasping at what remains unseen. Ever same underneath distance and resistance dance into stream, since then, as far can be from the necessary despairs and possible reflections prepared for the day's specificities, reversing into and out of heteronomy and gestured, approachable, stretched, zealous enough thought, told itself, if behavior is an ism, as noise is to extreme libidinized density,
stretched enough thought itself with extreme libidinized glance.
What remains in a helpless glance? Actually retreating distance and a leafy knot into unnecessary streets as train contradictions change, more or less quiet, remain locked in seizure location, what tries to try for more.
Into necessary change, more locked in tries for
looking for pieces of scrap through cracks falling, leftovers from history's workbenches, dustbins, garbage cans from which to construct a difference, a heavy knot, a nexus, knots of discontent. This content was as if by dreams and intent, for pieces looking, perched on branching out glances home, of different occasions, passing through days of trying. Retreating into disorder, and this order, as flooding comes first, alluvial read-writing, writing, it's trailing within. Writing is kinesthetic process, bodily function, an excretion, as is thinking a kind of action, and reading already made to move across the page, a playing, a practice, an inquiry is practiced, lived to do so, it is lived.
As is already made across a plane, a practice lived.
Reciprocity feeds back into rapport, a feedback loop. What connects these lines is a motion, a matter of motion, and motionless matter. What body leaves behind the mind? Its business minding the leafy matter or body's loam in which to wander, walking the ways of inky trails. Body functions as a motionless, minding its business matter motionless. Mind, its leafy long trails, forgotten, broken rituals where the body knows what to do, a kind of that walking, very center movements talking, peeking exactly how coalesce you back into photographing because forgotten. What is talking? Exactly always because. And men's became tumultuous occurring, and of course it's hard. Me, back in the flinging writing as musicking, a kind of talking. In the center of movements, peaking the moment in the truth, a kind of waking, very counter movements thinking, and off course becomes occurring. It's heart, me, back in the talking figments, out of whole lights. You, knows, becomes the side-see doing, whomever feels thinking. Not about, that is, where about implies a gap, a postponement of
immense
the
occurring,
signification.
and flinging, writing, talking. Center moment waking, very occurring me, you becomes thinking.
In other words, it means, not what, but just. It just means, not something other than itself.
Not gap postponement. Words mean other than knowing what.
Exploring the idea of knowing what you're doing at the moment you're doing it. Often, at the moment I'm writing, I don't know what I'm doing, where I was going with it. I mean, knowing, not knowing, or what I means in this context.
Doing often, doing where, knowing I, but allowing language and sounds and rhythms and the arriving marks.
It explores, but rather, allowing the self-organizing aspects of language, context irritant, and this, that is, its sounds, rhythms, its physical attributes to, as it were, lead the way, arriving at several questioning marks.
Not I'm sure, length, shove, approval, and seasons.
Regular irregularity. That is, languaging, not languishing. I mean verbatim, not verboten. It's okay, but I'm not sure my book will read at arm's length, lest I shove the distance on appeal and approval, and work for a change in the seasons.
As follows, slipping dark, poem words,
shoveling my ass off the ground, may read as follows, slipping and sliding in the afterthoughts, errors slithering in the dark, poem on me for a change at the now, as word follows word and sound follows sound. What we were listening for in the rain for hours and hours. Where was it?
In hours, we're shifting into stories. Matter, misfortune, collapse.
The process is shifting again into a wavering mist. My demarcation's a fistful of stories. It's a matter of fact, saved by misfortune. A collapse into undecidability. Consistent inconsistency, where inconsistency becomes the norm. And then, this distance too is part of the latest trend.
Inconsistency, where then distance trend.
If there's one sound that defines this pattern, it's the moment lost behind the rhythm. Questions made intelligible by a gesture borrowed but not measured out in beats.
There's a pattern, moment behind intelligible gesture beats.
This little starting out in contradictory rhythms, as if there were always an improvisation trying to get out, boiling over into lust, the weather bringing you gifts of stop signs out of context, fired up in the snow, against the grain of a walloping gust. Argumentative passivity, a nervous harbor
rhythms,
hollowed out in the
boiling
bosque.
gifts, signs, snow against gust.
From sun to stream, skip from line to face, rather than to that. Check out the fingers, packaging the insides, so who would have thought? Sinking into feeling, slinky real shoulders shoving aside the dreaming.
Argumentative harbor, hollowed stream, skip to check insides, who feeling slinky dreaming.
What's it mean when you say, what's it mean? And then, so what?
What? Say what's what? What? Say what? Say what? Say what? That's someone's encounter toward words, thoughts teeming way.
Got it, coming to you. The stream is someone's encounter stretched along a path toward words gleaming in the darkness of thoughts teeming. As branches intertwine, lead the way.
Lead the way, lead the way, lead the way, lead the way.
Text as environment, language as a kind of self-generating, self-organizing wilderness in which to wander, exploring the links, connections between language, thought, and perception.
Text of self-wander, exploring perception, in other whirls, conjecture without between someone shown under eye.
I wander, in other words, worlds where a world began. A fracture is just conjecture, without some difficulty moving toward a horizon between someone and other. Moving as ever shown underneath, and then so much as I do not know.
Massive.
Beginnings and endings are one. That is, in the beginning there was an ending, a shimmering chimera, rising and falling.
An argument for change, to fly in face of about,
in the beginning,
an about face
against the background of nothingness,
disorders,
chimera,
of course,
rising and
what
falling,
is in sound saying,
meter and rhythm in opposition,
something else.
against the background of silence, that is,
sounds are
at this juncture, meter and rhythm in opposition, a primary means of articulation,
and recomposing sound places and traces.
At this juncture, repetition causes disjuncture, a primary means of articulation. Just as in music, everything matters. Repetition causes disjuncture.
An action
and
of
events
hoping,
are intrinsically
sort of kind of
relational.
groping along
Just as in
into the
music,
manifest
everything
realm,
matters.
seeing this burgeoning
Constituted
activity
by
in the growing of
relationships.
plants and the forming of clouds.
Events are intrinsically relational, just as murmurs feed the stream, constituted by relationships in the amicable
My meta say what?
existence.
To disrupt the flow of communication,
Murmurs
create
feed the
extreme
stream that redirects you to a different
approach
dream.
white noise.
The amicable
Noise
blue
is freely
distance,
composed
the collapse
dissonance,
into
reject the
undecidability that
untouchability
redirects
of
you to a
beauty,
different dream.
to disturb automatism, to a strange
Turbulent
displace,
moment from
to
which
burst
we
the
arise,
binding of
the
current
collapse
usage,
into
develop
undecidability,
its
as if
possibilities
summoned
of
by the
social
sun's
framing
fervor.
within itself.
A
On
turbulent
behalf of
moment
the
from
reader
which we
/
arise, living in the
rather
world's
than impose some
gigantic
externalized
as
social
if summoned by the
movement.
sun's fervor, when things are seen as what they are.
Of a reading, that is,
Living in the world's gigantic
opportunities
fever,
and their
the
spontaneous
uneasiness of life
self-interpreting.
as it teeter-totters, when
Yet,
things are seen
this is
as
a
what they are,
choreography of
and the
possible
unknown weight
readings,
of
not
what will
insistent
be.
advocacy.
The uneasiness of life as it teeter-totters,
The time is
becoming
now
the
when
prevalent
music's
gesture of
wrestled
things,
everywhere.
and the
Language
unknown
is
weight
high,
of what to be,
interpenetrating,
as
voices
clouds are
are
reflected in the
echoing
crystal
in
mind,
every place now. Meta-present
becoming the prevalent gesture
forever
of
in
things.
passing.
How
This
thoughts
music
are amassed in
is
the restless wind,
sometimes
as
rejecting,
clouds are
but then
reflected
again
in the
accepting
crystal mind.
each other's right
Is
to
the
be
metaphor
or not
for
to
a
be.
new day.
Maybe the question of what
How thoughts are
improvisation
amassed in the
is
restless
forever
wind.
passing and
The ragged
presently
music in
becoming.
which we live
The time is
is
now.
the metaphor for a new day.
Writing can be
The chiaroscuro of a jagged sound. The ragged music in which we live, like fragments of a sound round. The chiaroscuro of a jagged sound,
We're taking
or
out
the sultry
in talking
songs of
steps
valley
toward being in
streams,
time
like
with the
fragments
moment to
of
which
a
we
playful
belong.
round. a now that is parted,
between ideas,
a process of becoming
this
and
no
going.
thingness in which we can live.
The materiality of rhythm and meter, just as thinking is a kind of bodily function, nowhere
a process of
meta-bounded,
becoming
ever
and
spaciously
is
meta-present,
present
as
now.
opposed to absent. Just now elapsing along a line
Just
of
as
thinking
thinking
is a
is
kind of bodily function,
humming,
the form or
howling,
shape of
sing,
a rhythm
sing,
is
began
present as a
somewhere.
kind of
A
absence,
sound heard
since
becoming
absence
a
can be
language,
felt,
a world
and is
now,
thus a
a
kind
music
of presence,
reflected
in resonance,
the
becoming
form or
awareness,
shape
of a rhythm,
an utterance in all
appearing
now
and
its zenith to be a
just as
language,
absence
now
can be
to
felt,
be a music.
and is thus
Therefore,
a kind of presence,
writing may be seen
chimeric,
as
as
an
a kind of
argument for
scintillation,
difference, rather than questions to already given
appearing and
answers,
disappearing,
a premise under
against a
which
background
and for
of
which
nothingness.
this writing
Chimeric,
emerges to
as a
maintain
kind
the
of
beauty
scintillation
relevant
or
music.
periodic shimmer,
Its structural nature resists self,
against a background
puts
of
forth
absolute
its own
nothingness, or periodic shimmering, aperiodic and chimeric, as a kind of flickering.
Music evasive, yet standing in opposition to the breeding of conformity, arising perhaps
Rising
from the
and
friction
falling
of our daily
with one's
contradictions,
surroundings,
standing in
aperiodic
calm
and
opposition
chimeric,
to the
or a kind of
eradication
flickering,
imagination,
subject to
resisting
perceptual
the
learning
impulses
with one's surroundings,
For these are
an
times in which
overlapping of sounds and voices, subject to perceptual learning, forming a
under the
web of
pretext
metric
of
intricacies,
and communication.
an overlapping of lines and voices surrounding one's cognition, becoming a web of metric intricacies, information with one's surroundings,
Reducing all
surrounding one's cognition, pulse or tactus, surround soundings, information with one's surroundings, to put it
power
tactfully,
and disdain,
pulse or
abstracting the
tactus,
body's
surround
labor for the sake of
soundings,
pains.
the ability to detect available information, to put it tactfully,
Seeking a music,
is a kind of
writing, the
anticipation.
structure of which, if not directly, then by
The ability to
implication,
detect
questions
available
authority
information
in all its
is not only
insidious
knowledge of what
manifestations,
already
from left
exists,
to right,
but
through the
also a
experience
kind of anticipation,
a writing
knowledge of one's encountering the world.
Oppression
Not
is
only
a
knowledge of
focus
what already
of
exists,
under
but cognition in the
manifestations
ecological
in our
sense,
daily lives, from
that
left
is,
to right,
knowledge
through
of
the
what's
extreme center,
encountering the world,
puritanical
of
impulse
imminent
to always
changes
be
and
right,
possibilities.
proper.
Cognition in the ecological sense, the relations of identity and relatedness, suggest the idea of continuous relations, an identity that won't keep, for which no list of particular relationships can be exhausted.
Superimposed on it.
The
The relations of identity and relatedness suggest the idea of continuous relations, an identity that won't keep, for which no list of particular relationships can be exhaustive, embodying a paradox. An identity that won't keep, except insofar as it keeps falling, embodying the paradox of the same yet nascent other. Insofar as it keeps falling, as I was saying, the same yet nascent other, what I wanted to say. As I was saying, let me just say that what I wanted to say was just something to say. Let me just say that at this juncture was just something to say. That is, a primary means of articulation. I mean, at this juncture, repetition causes disjuncture, a primary means of articulation. Just as in music, everything matters.
But you have defecated.
Repetition causes disjuncture, and events are intrinsically relational. Just as in music, everything matters, constituted by relationships. Events are intrinsically relational, a kind of burgeoning activity, constituted by relationships, just as we are riding along. A kind of burgeoning activity, like the growing of plants and the forming of clouds, just as one is riding along, languaging, not languishing, like the growing of plants and the billowing clouds, sort of kind of groping around, languaging, not languishing, just as sounds are a kind of play, sort of kind of groping along, without orders, but disorders into off-course, just as sounds are a kind of play, some more and then again, that is to say, without orders, but this order into, of course, a turbulent moment to which we belong. Some more and then again, that is to say, composing and decomposing, a kind of process. A turbulent moment to which we belong, recomposing places and traces of becoming and going, as a making past of a first event, and the durational potential of a new one, recomposing places and traces of becoming and going. I could say, that is to say, the durational potential of a new event, what's left to explore and say again. I could say, that is to say, and yet again, and still some more. What's left to explore and say again. What needs to be said and done some more. And yet again, and still some more, to create extreme libidinized density. What needs to be said and done again. The construction of a reading, that is listening. An extreme libidinized density. Images and words lying inwardly. The construction of a reading, that is listening, forever passing and meta-presently becoming. Images and words lying inwardly, just as one is riding along, forever passing and meta-presently becoming. Even as one speaks of things unknown, just as one is riding along, knowing full well that the last word is the lost word, even as one speaks of things unknown, sort of kind of groping along into the manifested realm.
Seldom said again, some more words, so much so, such that enough, and then some more, so much so, such that much so said, much more. más palabras al revés y más. Una decisiva vez con cuchillo. Un nuevo neo enceguece desde la distancia. A la entrada se detienen los sentidos. Oraciones pensadas. Seguro, nunca lo supo. Ahora el tú no me ve. Lo supo nuevamente, no soy salvaje. This stance of doing others. Belleza significa idioma. Nuevamente en ti un bosque espera, perverso. La que todo el decir nada en este de tú se desintegra. Jargon is combobulation, alignment, spacing, borders, language.
Gähnen oder etwas Alltägliches sagen, sondern brennen. Begin.
Bodies musicking, oneric, against haunted I choose waterway, possible, of ephemeral into rain and round return, dearly languaging what a talk, itself, which knows say what's left to say, what? More such leaves pounding entanglement represented, since metaphor is not an is. So weight made wheat means pressure towards say what perhaps clockwise. The take upon our is thinking what will whatever means made valley. between some way accumulated desire stroking, pressure towards that clockwise a blank of witness thought, liking some unwinding wandering across isolated words, looking down a wreckage upon represented. Interjections change upended listening, we're saying. Something think nots, will they then what when that were translated ended? Will they blank that page? Sometimes ended. What remains motions to whereabouts in swirls, saying who, not you were, listening, reconnecting, just, and dawning, which roots without purpose approximate wandering page, what words and then they pause. Was intent thought up, not at language enough sometimes changes. Scrambled whereabouts churning, now piece a pedal as much or make the same overgrown. Projection, we're saying translation coalesce across so much more.
Seldom said again, so much words, so much such that not, and then so more words, such that more said, and then so more,
so much so that enough, and then some more, so much so such that much so said, enough.
Seldom said again, much so much enough, so much so such that enough,
So much so such that much so said,
seldom said again, so more words, so much so such that enough, and then so more, so much so, such that one so said, seldom said again, so more words, so much so, such that enough, so then so more, such that more words, such that enough,
seldom said again, some more words, so much so,
Let's get much so said. Seldom said again. More words. So much so. So much so.
Here to stray away from the gory glory of bygone days. Sections soiled, of my music foiled, some stream from which my thoughts did rise, as mind other than my own.
Stray sections foiled, stream my own, interest messy, into musical misreadings.
An interest in broken music, the faulty, erroneous, erratic, erotically messy, into the haphazard, away from monument music, a music full of misreadings, slippages, false starts and dead ends, ruins and singularities.
Ruins from logic, a kind of oneric logic, accidental other territory.
Straying away from the logic of architectural construction and organic unity, in favor of a kind of oneric logic, the logic of desire and the impulsive, into the haphazard, the accidental. In other words, your maps are not this territory.
Resisting ideology, reproduced enough, such that enough, again, and words.
Which is to say, resisting the imperialist mindset and the freeze-dried mentality of ideology, which is reproduced in our daily interactions. So much to say, which is never enough, such that enough is seldom said, and then again, and still some more, in other words.
Language, languizing, whimsical, languaging, say verbatim places.
Language, and languise too, languizing. This language wants to play in places, whimsical, languaging, not languishing, which is to say, verbatim, not verboten, in wobbly places.
Dismantling verbatim into daydreaming, turbubabulant curlicues and recreation.
Dismantling the ism and violent rationality. Resounding neurons fire verbatim, running into foliage as a kind of musicking, in the wind and interstices between breaths daydreaming, turbubabulant Neanderthal-telling vineyards yearning, involutions and counter-involution curlicues in a mouthful of words and sounds disintegrating and reintegrating in recreation.
Meanings disordering, this ordering. Meanings these here begin mishearing.
A swarm, a shrapnel, a multiplicity of voices and sounds, following upon the exploding of fixed meanings and instrumental language, disordering and this ordering, slippages sopping through fissures and interstices encrusted with meanings rusted. These issues become like tissues of which so much here and there where endings begin, firing and misfiring into misreadings, not to mention
electrochemically
mishearings.
into translation, transacting while looping, ongoing, digressive into again, my beyond.
Electrochemically pitter-pattering and discombobulating into disjuncture. At this juncture, identity wandering into and out of morphological similarities, into territories defenseless, a kind of ongoing translation, transacting between coming and going, and perhaps staying a while. That is, looping round and round, disrupting the sameness of ongoing change, a digressive device, whimsical in places. The origins of language eroded from English into Spanish to Spanglish, as in fixando la huila de mi troca, and beyond into noisy transgressions and transmutations,
Stumbling into clusters, embedded
the materiality of language, a mumbling, a stumbling, and then again rumbling, into rambling and polyglottally muttering and stuttering, a bambling in layers and clusters, embedded in, of course, and off course,
contradictions, refracted sense, locus sounds rejecting exclamulations, and then to say,
an intervention in the form of internal contradictions and ambiguities refracted through prisms of languages fragmented, assaults on the defenses of language and official sense, on language as a locus of national identity and ethnic purity. Aesthetic cleansing or ethnic cleansing sounds the same to me, rejecting the impulse to reduce the world, life, down to a collection of explanations, mutilations, explamutilations, down into organized tedium, and then again, and still some more, which is to say, in other words,
were other worlds, conjecture without, between someone shown, under I.
listening to the whir, where the words once were, I wanders, in other words, whirls where a world began. A fracture is just conjecture, without some difficulty moving toward a horizon between someone and other. Re-moving was ever shown, sown under news, and then, so much as I does not know.
Seldom say again, so more words, so much, so such that enough, and then so much, so such that much, so said, not say much more.
sondern rein.